Here we are. We are live and we are recording. We are rolling. Lights, camera, action, everyone. District 19 Queens. Welcome to Politics NY. I'm Sky, and that's Steve Witt there on the screen. He's the political editor-in-chief for Schneps Media and Politics NY. We are the only media outlet providing a platform for every single New York City Council candidate to have their voice heard and faces and personalities displayed. District 19, Queens. It's nice to meet you guys. I've had Adriana, Austin, and Richard on my show, Politics NY with Sky, 3 questions in 3 minutes. And Tony Avella, we're doing his interview tomorrow. So that'll be everyone on the screen. And I know that there's more candidates that are part of District 19 that are running. And just to put it out there, we invited every single candidate who's on the ballot to be part of this discussion because we believe in this democratic or democracy platform of having all the voices heard. So today's debate will be more like a discussion and we'll make it fast and fun. So each time you speak, just try and keep your answers short and sweet because we hate cutting people off, but we want to give everyone a chance. And we want to be able to facilitate a little bit of conversation because it makes it more interesting and engaging that way. And I'd like to thank our live audience. There's a live audience watching this and it's also being recorded and the recording will be on politicsny.com/debates. That's where all the debates are scheduled. We're doing a debate for every single council district and all the recordings will live there. So audience, if you have questions, you can type them in and maybe we will ask some of your questions depending how much time we have as this conversation goes. So District 19, this is Paul Vallone's council seat and he is term limited. So these folks are all competing for that council seat and it encompasses these neighborhoods in Queens, Auburndale, Bay Terrace, Bayside, Beechhurst, College Point, Douglaston, Flushing, Little Neck, Malba, and Whitestone. So let's begin going in alphabetical order with last names. So we'll begin with Tony Avella. Just give us a little bit about your background and why you are running for this council seat in District 19.
Sure. First of all, since I'm the first, thank you for hosting this. I'm sure your viewers are going to learn a lot from tonight's discussion, as you put it. When I was in school, I always used to hate going first, but with A, but I guess there's an advantage to it. So as some of you viewers know, I used to be the council member and the state senator for this area, Northeast Queens, and I'm running for my old city council seat. I think, with the issues that we have facing us, like coming back from COVID-19, the loss of jobs, the loss of small businesses, and the virus itself, the new city council members, and there's like 35 new council members, are going to have to hit the ground running. They're going to have to know what the job is from day one, even before day one. And I think experience matters. And I think I have that experience being the only person who's actually been elected to public office. And certainly I think I have the most extensive knowledge of the district and the issues historically. So as I say, experience matters, and I hope the voters will agree.
Thank you. Adriana, let's hear from you.
Oh, thanks, Sky. I so appreciate Schneps Media, of course, as we know it's owned and run by women. So I so appreciate that. Woohoo! Sorry, Steve, but I am the only female Latina candidate in City Council District 19, and I come from a large family of 7. My mom was a widowed, pregnant, single mother coming from Colombia to come to the United States to make a better life for her family. And to just make it really quick, we came here, she worked hard, 3 jobs, and raised her family, government assistance, and next thing you know, here I am. Wonderful life, retired police officer. My sisters worked hard for us as well, and have a wonderful family. I have 3 children, 13, 11, and 8 years old, all in New York City public schools. And last year, due to COVID, I just felt there was a lot of conversations that were not, no one was listening to our communities. And I felt that it was my time to really step up, because everyone always says, oh, thank you for stepping up. They say I'm crazy for doing this because say politics is insane, but sometimes it takes people, regular people, to step up so that the regular voices get heard, because I feel it's the same old conversations from like years ago. It's almost like a recycling conversation and nothing ever gets done for our communities. And now, especially with COVID, people know what's going on. They're a part of these conversations. They listen on the Zooms, everything is more public, and they just know that a lot of things are not really put into place for our communities. And I feel like now it's just time for me to come forward to say, it's time for change, positive change, and hopefully, we can always learn and get educated. I'm not like a scholar or anything, but you know what? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on, what we need to improve. And I'm not tied to any special political parties or any special interests, just a regular person trying to make change for the regular person. And hopefully I can move our community forward to positive change. So thank you.
Thank you. And I see Nabaraj KC is here on a beach.
Looks like it, right?
Tell
That's
us
my
about
best part of I used to be in Hawaii for almost a year, so I love that scene. So that's why I chose the background to be.
So tell us about yourself, Nabaraj, who was also on my 3 questions in 3 minutes.
Wonderful. First, I really thank you for having this candidate night, and it's really honored to see all the not a new faces, very familiar faces. We know each other mostly. And my name is Nabaraj KC, born and raised in Nepal. I'm here since 2002. I'm here as a father now. I'm here as an immigrant. I'm here as a business owner. I speak more than 5 languages. That's the beauty of Queens. So I really feel really great honor that. So first and foremost, I want to thank you, all the candidates, to be here. And happy Mother's Day to Adriana. As you said, you are the only one female and the mother here. So in other words, I am globally recognized humanitarian because I do a lot of humanitarian work locally, nationally, and globally. That means over 20 years experience. So I want to put that experience to the District 19. That's my passion. And a lot of people tells me, you are not even city council member. You have been doing so much for the community. What would you do if you get elected? I'm like, that would be the great thing to have suffice for the district. So in other words, 20 years experience I want to put into the leadership, because I have done many things as a Rotarian, served as a Rotary Club, as a president for 2019 to 2020. And right now I'm serving as assistant governor in the Rotary Club, which is called the District 7255. So I'm ready to go for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are just getting to know all the candidates here on the screen and just a little brief intro. And next is Richard Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Steve. And thank you to all my candidates who are also here for hosting us today. Yeah, my name is Richard Lee. I grew up in Northeast Queens in Douglaston. My wife, who's a small business owner, grew up in Bayside. And now we are raising our 3 kids, a 3rd grader, a kindergartner, and a 2-year-old in our house in North Flushing. And I've been in public service almost 20 years now. I first worked at a nonprofit organization as a community organizer and then a public policy director, and then served as a legislative and budget director to the City Council Deputy Majority Leader, Leroy Comrie. And most recently, I served as budget director to Queens Borough President Melinda Katz and interim Borough President Sharon Lee for the last 7 years. And I've really become an expert in governance and understanding how the city really operates. And the reason I entered public service to begin with is to understand that. I wanted to make government more accessible to communities. And too many times right now, communities are left out of decision-making processes related to decisions that are impacting their everyday lives. And I think this will be especially important when we talk about COVID recovery. We're sort of at the end of the pandemic in terms of like a healthcare perspective, because now we have vaccines available. But in terms of like an economic perspective, we still have a lot of work to do. And having communities involved in that decision-making process and being able to access information and how to shape their own communities will be important. And understanding the intersectionality of different industries between public and private sector and having the relationships in government as well as the private sector with the knowledge of how governance works will be important. And those are sort of my expertise issues. And so with that, I hope that I'll be able to serve my community with the experience that I've sort of built up, starting as a community organizer up until now, so we have a more responsive government that's going to really be able to work for the people.
Thank you. And our last candidate that we have with us, Austin Shafran. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Hey y'all, I'm Austin Shafran, and let me start with this. I want your vote. For those that are watching at home, recorded, live, or to be determined, I think I should just start with that. I want your vote. Why do I deserve your vote? That's obviously up to you. What I like to do is I like to think of this as our campaign, as our ideas, as our moment. And I think that it's really important for people that have lived in the community that want to make it better in these really extraordinarily challenging moments. Ordinary people like us can step up and they can do extraordinary things when they join together to make a place they love better. And myself, my family, my wife, my 5-year-old at home, my 4-month-old who is definitely not watching, and my parents who all live in the district, we've experienced a lot of the same problems that a lot of other families in this area have. Affordability, issues with school funding and overcrowding, issues with senior transportation for my parents who, sometimes have difficulty getting around, overdevelopment and the crowding in neighborhoods. I think these are the sort of the commonalities that divide us. And that's why with a common purpose and a purposeful togetherness, I hope that our campaign can do some really extraordinary things being powered by ordinary folks just like myself. So hopefully we'll get to know each other a little better throughout this in the next couple of weeks. And that's why I'm respectfully asking for your vote.
Awesome. Thank you to all these candidates you see on the screen that are competing for District 19. And I'd like to go in the same order, if you guys don't mind, beginning with Tony Avella, and talk about the biggest issue you think in District 19 in your community. What is the #1 issue? And then once you say your #1 issue, other candidates are welcome to chime in and opine on that issue. And we'll have that little bit of a discussion for a while, but try and keep your answers short and sweet. Okay, everyone, thank you.
Well, I think first of all, dealing with the ramifications of COVID-19 are going to be the overwhelming issue. Hopefully everybody will have received their full vaccinations by the time the new city council takes effect, but we'll be dealing with maybe booster shots that will be needed. We'll be dealing with how do we get people back to work? How do we reopen small businesses? I mean, that's going to be the major focus. Beyond that, there are going to be a lot of other issues in terms of education, in terms of overdevelopment. There's going to be a big push by other parts of the city and maybe other elected officials to get rid of one-family home districts. When I was in the city council, I downzoned most of the council district to stop overdevelopment. And here we are, almost 12 years later with an issue that we may have to fight that same battle. So there's a lot of things we have to look at, but obviously dealing with the ramifications of COVID-19 is going to be the major issue.
What has to be done? And that's a question for anyone to keep going on that topic. What has to be done? What can you do in your capacity as a council member for District 19?
Well, I think the first thing is to make sure that every neighborhood has had access to the vaccinations. I mean, Northeast Queens didn't have a site for vaccinations well into the COVID crisis. I mean, that was a disgrace by the city. We need to have the Health and Hospitals Corporation and the city council look at every single neighborhood to make sure that they got the vaccinations, what was the results, to make sure that any minority neighborhoods got the same vaccinations that other neighborhoods did, and to look at what the healthcare needs in those neighborhoods, especially minority neighborhoods who have not been getting the healthcare resources that other parts of the city have. So that's something that the city council should look into. City council has oversight capabilities. I think the city, having served in the city council, I think the city council needs to do more of that. The mayor controls the agencies, but the city council can have oversight.
If I can jump in, Tony makes a really good point. I experienced this unfortunately firsthand. It took me like 3 weeks to try to navigate these portals to help my folks get a vaccination. At that point, we had no permanent vaccination site. We barely had any pop-up centers in the area. I'm like, somewhat adept at this stuff, and I was confused by it. And the system not only needs to be more robust in terms of having more opportunities, areas that have the most eligible people, areas like ours that have a large, senior, older adult population should have the most access, but also making it easier. I mean, my whole family had COVID. I had it, my kids, even down to my, at that time, 1-month-old, and I got call after call, day after day from the testing and the tracing program. There's a way for the city to get to you when they want to get to you. They can hunt you down for fines and fees and something like that. So if they wanted to make it easier, they could actually be reaching out to everyone that's eligible, helping connect them with appointments and things in their neighborhood. So it's not like a whack-a-mole game, and we have better access to the services, especially for the senior populations that are, less technologically savvy and have trouble with those things.
And I'd like to just piggyback off of this because, I was one of the first people to call for a permanent site because I too was going through the same exact issues. And my parents who didn't have access to technology or didn't have in-language services had a very hard time accessing vaccines. But I think the important issue is, really to look forward right now, because now we are sort of at this place where we're now talking about vaccinations for our youth. And we have to learn the lessons. We have to use the lessons learned during this period of rollout as we figure out how we're going to roll out the vaccination for our youth going forward, because we are all sort of talking about, wanting to open up full time by September. But if we haven't learned the lessons of what we did until now with the current amount of vaccinations and outreach and understanding that communities need these services in language, in areas that they can easily reach and have help that are going to provide them with services that they're going to understand. And then we're going to be able to roll out the next phase of vaccinations for our youth. And I think it's particularly important because so many of our parents right now are sort of still left in limbo. Me as a father of a 3rd grade and kindergartner, we don't know what's going to happen in September. Are we still going to be at this place where we're sort of like in school but not in school? Or are we going to be able to roll out vaccines by then with the leadership of like the federal government? But if we do, we have to do this right. And we have 3-4 months to do that once school ends. So I would like to make sure that we have the lessons learned by then. And I'm saying this broadly in terms of a government perspective.
It's funny that you guys all say about the vaccination and everything, but what I understand to be the top umbrella on this is the lack of communication and a lack of transparency to our communities about anything, whether it's the vaccination, whether it's about schools, whether it's about public safety. And the reasoning why a lot of our families, especially our immigrant families, are not getting vaccinated in certain populations is because of the lack of communication to these groups that we have in our own district. They're not getting any of the information out there, whether they're in Spanish, whether they're in Chinese or Korean. And that's a problem when your own government is not communicating, whether it's a vaccination, whether it's about schools being safe or not, whether or not what's going on as far as public safety is concerned. The major issue I think we have here, which goes to the other issues we're talking about, is transparency and communication of those in government to the people that they're supposed to represent and reach out to and say, this is what we have. This is what we have out there for you. It's safe. It's not safe. The schools, et cetera, et cetera. And if we don't have that as a government official to reach out to these families or these residents in our communities, then how do we expect them to move forward in life, to go to their jobs, to go to schools, and so that our city can further, everything can open up as well? Because people are afraid because they don't understand and no one's reaching out. And we have a large immigrant population in our district. And I just feel we're failing miserably because we have a lot of groups that are just not getting the message about vaccinations too, but about everything else. And I think that is something that's very important.
And that's an issue that's been going on for years, right? And this goes to every single agency in New York City. When we passed, I worked on passing Executive Order 120 almost 10 years ago, which was supposed to provide in language and culture appropriate interpretation services. But still to this day, it doesn't happen. So it's not only about vaccinations, it's not only about ranked choice voting, right? Communities have no idea when ranked choice voting is even happening because not even being, information is not being provided in their own languages. But this goes to like housing, so this goes to like social services, just the whole gamut of it has just been very difficult for immigrant communities and communities of color to really access information. And that definitely needs to change, and something that I've been working on for the last 10 years.
very
So
limited.
guys, I want to make a few points. Now, let's say I'm the one of the COVID hero award recipient guy, because I was out there every single day since last year. We are talking about the lack of communication. Yes, that is true. A lot of people, I mean, we speak about 250 languages in the Queens. Not everyone they can call 311 or 911 or call any kind of help desk to get that support. They cannot do this. So we don't have enough resource, that's for sure. The same thing, same problem to the small business owners. They have the same problem. They cannot get the grants unless they hire somebody. So how are they going to access? Let's say I'm from Nepal. There are so many people, they don't speak English perfectly. And they don't know like all the like a little small writing terms and conditions, where to go, how to apply and all that to get supported for the business. During the pandemic, I closed down 2 businesses, to be honest with you, because it's not a lack of English, I would say, but I would say some other reason. Because just like me, a lot of people getting hurted in the business. So many other things, believe me, same issues have the many tenants. They don't speak very good English, or they don't have any other ideas how to get communicated to get the real resource. So believe me, the local leadership has to step up and help and provide all the support the local people needs. I understand that part, but they know leadership. To be honest with you,
Well, you
where's
know,
the leadership?
if I can jump in here, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And when you said local leadership, that's what the city council person has to do. I mean, that's the local person that should be reaching out to every neighborhood and every community and every ethnic, religious, background in that district to make that person understand that they can reach out to the council member. And yet somebody mentioned, I forget who it was, 311.
I did.
311, in my opinion, is terrible. It doesn't provide the language access for people, and it never follows up. In other words, you make a complaint, if you even know how to get to 311, you make a complaint, you get a number, God bless you if you can figure out what to do with that number. And the agency never gets back to you.
Okay.
I actually put in a couple of department building complaints myself recently, just to see what 311 was doing. 2 months later, I get a response saying, oh, we forwarded your complaint to the Department of Buildings and they closed out the complaint. That's not the system we should be having. 311 should be able to get back in their language to every person who calls them, and every agency where the complaint goes should get back to that constituent saying, here's what we did, here's what we can do, or here's what we can't do. That system needs to change, because that's supposed to be the easy access for every constituent in the city of New York.
Yeah,
Because
311 just doesn't work.
how are we having the same conversations though? Like, it's not like a miracle that all of a sudden people just pop out of nowhere and speak all these languages, right? It seems to be the same problems year after year after year. This is not something just happened yesterday. So I don't understand why those that were elected or have been elected, why all of a sudden it's like something that just came out of the sky, when these are ongoing issues in our not just our district, in our city. And that's the problem I have. Why are we having these same discussions, these same conversations being regurgitated when we know what the problems are, but it seems to be the same problems all the time? That's the reason why I'm running, to really say, these are the problems and let's solve this, let's have these solutions, because I'm tired of hearing the same problems. When you go to door, it's the same issues. Why are the roads not fixed? The roads have been a mess for over 15 years. I don't understand. They didn't appear out of nowhere yesterday. Why are the schools in the same shape they are in now? It's the same conversations, and I don't understand. Don't tell me it's because of money, A, B, and C, and D. What are the solutions and what are the paths? And why are we still having the same people having the same conversations?
Well, first of all,
Department of Building, there's a big issue for all the local businesses. They come, give you a ticket. And if you go to the building to pay the ticket, you'll hardly find the person at the cashier desk, believe it or not. And then it's a big problem. If you don't pay, they get fined, they get another fine. So I believe city council person had to step up even for that, even though it's a state issue.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
I actually own a small business too, right? And I think what I've been personally experiencing, well, my wife has been personally experiencing as a small business owner, is that the city for the last couple of months have just been over fining and over violating a lot of businesses. What I feel is because they're trying to just generate revenue off the backs of small businesses. And this causes, it's $100 here, $200 there, but it keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. And for small businesses right now, many of whom can't even make rent right now, who are barely generating revenue, these things add up and makes it extremely difficult. And so what Casey, what Nabaraj said was absolutely correct. I think we have to do a little bit more for our small businesses. And I'm talking about this from a personal account. And I think what we could immediately do is, for a lot of these violations, create like a 3-month grace period, like a correction period. So the small business could immediately fix it. And then if they fix it, then there's no fine, there's no trial at oath, there's no violation. As long as they're able to fix it, that's the main issue. We shouldn't be trying to generate revenues and make it more difficult for small businesses, because it is extremely, extremely difficult for small businesses right now in this current environment.
If I can add on to that, I agree with Richard, but they're supposed to be in place as we speak. And I guess the city's not following it. It's supposed to be education first. They're supposed to go to the small business, tell them what the issue is, educate them to what they should be doing properly. Then if they don't fix it, then they go back and issue a fine. If they're not doing that now, which is what Richard is saying, and I agree with you, then we need to get back, and that's the oversight of the city council, to say to the Department of Sanitation, to the Department of Buildings, Department of Consumer Affairs, you're not doing the job you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to educate first, then if they don't comply, issue a fine.
Can I just jump in on that as a reporter here? I've done several stories in the last 8 years. The Progressive Caucus, they did legislation, the paid family sick leave thing. And I've known other small business owners that felt that that was never really explained to them. And there almost seems in the city council a movement that's kind of heavily regulating small business. And as city council people, your job is oversight over and legislation over the executive branch. And I've talked to several small business people. There was also an issue where people had wrong signage up, and the city was just going around and fining people for the signage, $3,000. Mm-hmm. Would you look for legislation that would kind of help small business, or maybe curtail certain kinds of legislation so far for small business specifically on family paid leave? And
I would be surprised if any of the candidates said no to that. I think we're all going to say yes to that, especially given COVID, getting these small businesses to reopen and to make it easy for them. I've always been a proponent. One of the big issues facing small business has been escalating rents. I was a prime sponsor of legislation when I was in the council, when I was in the Senate, supporting the city council legislation for mediation of escalating rents. Because if you ask small business owners, what was the biggest problem they face? Yes, fines was an issue, but escalating rents. I mean, at the time, I remember there was one business owner who came to me.
So you favor the small business? Do you favor the small bit? What's it called? The small business? I can't have it. It's a big thing.
Yeah, I know what you. Yes, I was actually a prime sponsor of that bill that would create a mediation process. Yes.
Yeah. And I actually worked on that bill too when I was in the city council for Leroy Comrie. It's a bill that's been around for a long time, but piggybacking off of that, because I think that's a very important issue, and I do support that bill as well, because it is a fair way to negotiate rents for small businesses. The other flip side is that we have a lot of landlords, like large scale landlords, who are trying to evict a lot of small businesses out in the hopes that they could increase rents for a larger, bigger box kind of retail coming in. And so what's been happening is that if they're unable to rent it, they just leave it open, leave it blank. This is unrented. It creates a lot of blight in the neighborhood. But what they're doing is they're able to do that because they're able to write off those losses on their taxes. And so, one of the things that we should do not only is pass the mediation bill so that rents could be better negotiated between landlords and tenants, but also try to introduce some sort of like a vacancy tax. If a landlord is not showing any good faith in renting out the property, then there should be some sort of vacancy tax to prevent it from becoming blight. If they are actively trying to rent it out, that's a different story, right? They can't find a renter. But if they are intentionally not renting it out, there should be some sort of vacancy tax. This creates a lot of blight and prevents other small businesses who are trying to find brick and mortar spaces to get into spaces. And I think right now is especially important, considering that we have so many small businesses that were lost. But at the same time, a lot of small businesses now trying to get in with a lot of these new resources that are coming from the city, the state, and the federal government.
Let me jump on something.
Really strong. Richard made a really strong point earlier, which is get back to real briefly. He's, said a lot of the fines, fees, the licensing, the permit, the requirements are more about generating revenue than actually, protecting neighborhoods and creating a good small business environment. And it's, less about education. And Tony made the same point too, which I agree with both. And I think one of the things that we really need to do is to kind of take this moment, this post-COVID moment when we've seen small businesses struggling so much, and that's flip the system on its head and actually phase out a lot of these fines, these fees, these licensing and permitting requirements, phase them out, and then have a real top to bottom review, like a forensic audit of all of them, because a lot of these have been on the books for decades and they've, outlasted their utility, and they're just punitive, and they're just a way to rack up fines and to rack up dollars and revenue for the city. And what we should do is phase them out, and then only the ones that make sense, whether it's through a small business task force or some kind of a meeting of the minds of the city council, but just keep the ones that are actually useful and that are to protect public health, safety, and things like that, and get rid of all of the onerous ones that we just, see every day as a burdensome, burdensome approach to small businesses.
Let me jump on something. The business versus the fines. I'm one of the victims, including many other small businesses. For instance, for any restaurant owners, all the inspectors, they just walked in without any information and write a ticket. That is insane. So somehow, let's say there's a big problem in New York City, it's a mouse issue. That's another big problem. They shut down the business for no reason. They just walked in, write a ticket, thousands of dollars. Doesn't matter how profitable business or not, they just write a ticket. But what I would do, I want to introduce some type of important thing that really matters to the small business owners. All the inspectors, they have to make an appointment with the owner of the business that they are coming. It's not like you walk in and just write a ticket. Anybody can, we all make a mistake, but there should be a timeline in order to be corrected. Let's say go there, if there's any issue, give them timeline, let's say for a week. They can fix it and provide the receipt. The same thing, the way you said the signage. If there is no any signage in the store, let's say some type of sign for the cigarette or anything like that, they write you a ticket. And if there is no price for the one item, they write out thousands of dollars for no reason. And after certain time, they literally close the business. That's insane. And that's the job of the city council. And city council leadership matters for that. Thank you.
So,
Well, again, to go back to, I think we all agree on this, but
right.
to go back to what you just said, we need to have the education process first. If they know what the issue is, then there's no reason why they can't be prepared when the inspector comes. I don't necessarily agree with scheduling an appointment. First, you have to do the education process. If you do that, then I would agree to have an appointment. But I think, sometimes you have to surprise the person, because otherwise they may clean up their act temporarily. And then once the inspector goes, go back to the old practice. There's a reason some of these fines, some of these regulations, shouldn't say fines, but some of these regulations exist for the public health. To go back to what Austin said, I would just say, let's have the task force first before we phase out stuff. To get rid of some of these regulations, we may have a huge problem in terms of public health. Let's look at the regulations first before we phase anything out. I've always been a supporter of small business. I was very proud in the past. I don't know what they're doing this year to be supported by the Small Business Congress. We all agree we need to do something for small business. What I've always found fascinating is everybody talks about small business, yet government seems to be their biggest enemy. We have to change that once and for all.
Sky, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say real quick. I know you're gonna say something, Sky. Just give me one quick minute. Like, I know everyone here seems to own like a small business, but going from door to door to all the small businesses and introducing myself as a candidate, I heard from these small businesses, and what they're saying is, once again, there's no community, there's no communication, no outreach to these small businesses, these owners, to say how to do these things, where to do these things. We're online, they get on the phone for hours, no one talks to them. How do they get these federal SBA loans or all these different things that can help them? There is no one specifically, I don't see anyone from city council or any other government official going to these small businesses that we know live in our communities and helping them in their languages and helping them do the outreach. How are they supposed to know what fines or what lawyers, how much to pay if no one's explaining them the process?
Well, that's what the.
Sorry, but hold on, Mr. Avella, but I'm just repeating what they are telling me going door to door, that they really they're frustrated and they really
agree.
Right, because no one is giving them the support they need, especially now when they need their children to go to school. They need their businesses to be as much as they can so they can support their families. And who wants to be on the phone for 2 hours getting the support that they need in their language? That's ridiculous. I don't understand how our government is not supporting them.
I think we all agree. I think that's what we're all saying.
Yeah.
Listen,
That's the problem. And the city council has the responsibility to make it better.
All government should be reaching out to these small businesses, not just the city council, it's also federal. I'm getting emails in English from the SBA. I don't know.
But we're running for the city council. We're not running for anyone.
Yeah, but
Scott, hold on, stop, everybody. I want Sky to say something here.
Oh, I like that this is a discussion, but here's the thing, right? We're doing this forum as a way for people to get a sense of who you guys are, talk a little bit about yourselves. And it's really great that everyone agrees on a lot of things. But at the end of the day, voters are watching this to determine which one of you they're going to rank 1, 2, 3. They're going to determine who they like the best, right, on this screen. So I'd like to have each of you, define yourselves. And maybe the way we'll do that is we'll start with Austin, because he was last the first time, where maybe you ask a pointed question to one of your competitors here, and the competitor can respond. And let's try and keep it short and sweet, but this is an effort to really define who you are and what you stand for. That's different from one another, because I think everyone here is a Democrat. So if everyone's on the same party line, why should someone choose you over the next person? Austin, let's do that in the form of a question to someone else.
Got it. So I can't ask if everyone's a Democrat, right? You took that question like
a pointed question to one person here.
All right. No, not so much a pointed question, but I think you started to get into it on the priorities, and I'd like to see a continuation of it, and some folks haven't gotten a chance at. So Richard, what would be your top priority that you would like to achieve in the council?
So the priority I actually want to achieve is actually like a very unsexy issue, but it's a very important issue. And that is related to procurement in New York City and spending of capital dollars. You see, New York City has a multi-billion-dollar capital budget. And the issue right now is that the way that procurement works is that it's largely giving to the lowest bid firms. So like whenever you want to do like a construction project, right, or a sewer project, goes to the lowest bidding. And what happens with that is that usually, a lot of times, firms might lie about providing prevailing wages, or they might not be able to complete the project because they underbid it just to get the project done, or they might not be able to capture existing technologies because it costs more and they won't get their business, right? So what I want to do is I want to create a new system in procurement so that we are able to have a better scoring system in order to capture a lot of firms who might not be able to compete because the costs are higher, because they might be providing more environmentally more sustainable goods, or goods that are more socially conscious, or they might be using better technology, right? And by doing that, we're going to be able to not only have more responsible bidding processes going into firms who are going to be more responsible to communities, but able to roll out a city capital budget and create jobs, because this capital budget is essentially a mechanism to create jobs. Now we have to pay this money back because it's created off of bonds that the city issues, but you don't have to pay it back for many, many years. And so if we're able to capitalize on it right now, then I feel like we are going to be able to create these jobs, have fair wages, and have firms that are coming in who are going to be utilizing more responsible goods and responsible practices, and have the city economy moving. And that's one very easy way that the city can get the economy back on the road directly, right? Because in a lot of ways, the city can't control the economy, but this is one way we could create jobs immediately, and we could do it more responsibly.
Now, Richard, do you want to ask a question to one of your competitors?
Sure. So I think the one thing that differentiates all of similarities between all of us is that, most of us are first-time candidates, so we've never been elected. And Mr. Avella, you've been elected for many years, both as our city council member and our state senator. And in those years that we've had you as our representative, I think in a lot of ways, there was both good and bad. But on large part, I think for a lot of policies, especially as yourself, who was with the IDC most recently, a lot of policies I think have either been very divisive or ineffective in bringing resources into our communities in the past. So I wanted to ask, what can be different, with somebody who has already been elected, trying to run for the seat again?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the Independent Democratic Conference. I think it's very interesting that we have such division in this country. Everybody thinks, whether it's the Democrats, the Republicans are the enemy, Republicans feel the Democrats are the enemy. I think we need to change that. And that's why I always work together with both sides. I'm a Democrat. I believe in the Democratic platform, but I think the divisiveness that has permeated city, state, and federal government needs to end. I started out as a community activist, working in my own community. That's how I approached my role as a council member and state senator. And I'm very proud of the fact that I still take that role, even when I was an elected official. Taking care of my community is the only reason I ever ran for office. And you also have to remember that as a state senator or as a council member, you're just one person. You have to work with everybody to get things done. And I think I've done that. And I've tried to work with everybody to bring money back to the district, which would not have gotten to my district as state senator, bring money back when I was the council member, and do things and fight for my community. At various times I was a pest. And something, you have to be a pest sometimes to fight for what you need for your district.
So you have
if you just go along to get along. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just for length of time, because we don't have a lot of time,
Right.
do you have a question for another candidate?
No, I don't. I just want to say, I don't believe in asking questions, because it sort of leads, it's sort of.
You don't believe in asking questions?
No. I don't believe in asking a question of another opponent. In theory, it's supposed to be the gotcha movement, where you try and embarrass your opponent. I don't believe in that. I believe in each opponent, each person saying why they want to run for office, what they've done, what they want to do. If you look at even my past, appearances.
I have a question. Will you ask other fellow colleagues in the city council any questions?
Well, that's different. Then we're elected. And then we gotta, use our expertise to get things done. But I'd rather talk about what we want to do, what we've done, rather than ask a question. I don't think that gets us anywhere.
All right. Does anybody else want to ask a question to someone?
Someone has just joined us. We have John Alexander on the line here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Let me ask.
Sorry, there was a mix up with my Zoom link, and then I saw everybody here was a Democrat, so I thought, oh no, it might be only a Democrats only debate, but I'm glad to join you now at the tail end, and thank you guys.
Welcome.
My question is simple. Can I ask in general all the candidates?
Well, in the interest of time.
It will be very quick.
In the interest of time, you have to ask
Very
one.
quick.
Yeah.
It's going to be to all the candidates because I don't want to point out one person. So if anyone, I know one of them is gonna get elected. If you lose, how would you continue your community service after losing the elections? Or I hear all the candidates, if I get elected, I would do this, I would do that, all kind of philosophy, you know what I mean? Let's talk about something. If you lose, how would you serve your community? Either way, please tell me one by one.
Maybe go first. I plan
Go
to
ahead.
be in, public service for the rest of my career. I really enjoy, working for the people. And I plan to go back into government. I think it's something that I am good at, and I, want to use my skills and abilities to help as many people as I can. So no matter what, give or take, I'm always going to be in government for the next however many years that I can.
I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Oh,
Go.
yeah, my hand to go next. No, it's a good question. It's one to think about, because like you always don't want to think about what you're gonna do if you lose. But look, I think that I'm probably gonna go back to doing a lot of dad stuff that I'm doing and that I'd love to spend more time doing. Like I coach my son's Little League team with Bayside Little League. I volunteered and run a couple of youth sports programs. Been working with the PTA at PS 169 where I went to school, and my son's going next year. It's gonna kind of be a lot of that stuff, and just helping where I can, when I can, who I can. Because like I said at the beginning, I don't think that there's any real lock on you need to have some extraordinary moment to do these extraordinary things. I think it's the everyday stuff about caring about your fellow neighbor, thinking about someone other than yourself. What are the kind of issues that you're dealing with that they're dealing with? I've got parents that have diabetes and that have trouble, and like I want to push for a senior transportation program. Well, I'll still keep talking about it, because win or lose, guess what? My dad's still going to have diabetes, and he's still going to have a tough time getting to physical therapy, and a lot of other people have the same issues with their parents. So probably the same kind of stuff that I'm pushing for as a candidate, I would do at the end, except more time on the Little League field.
Thank you, Nabaraj, for that question. I've been a part of the Community Education Council in my District 26. I'm the president, and I've been in the conversation with the schools for a while now. So as a mom, we never stop, right? We never stop in the schools. We never stop in the community. So PTAs, I've always been in the PTAs. I've always been in school leadership teams. I'm on the community board now. I'm blessed that I am retired from NYPD, but as a mom, we're nonstop because we want the best for our children, for our neighbors, and for everyone in our communities. So I'm just gonna keep on going and be tired every day, but that's okay, because that's what we're here for. And good to see you, John.
I guess that was the baton being passed to me for to answer the question. Well, Casey, I know you're a member of Rotary. I'm on my second lunch trying to get into Rotary, so I'll be doing that probably.
Join my club. Join my club. You don't have to be a Democrat for that.
Pardon me?
You can join my Rotary club. You don't have to be a Democrat for that.
But I have to be a Democrat to be the president, like you were. So I plan on doing that, but to be honest with you, Casey, I don't anticipate losing. I think a big change is going to happen here in District 19, and we're going to do a whole new change across all city government, because that's what New York City needs, is a change in the vanguard of government. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So I think a whole different class of candidate is going to win this year all across the city.
Yeah, if I could just finish up there. I've lived in Northeast Queens my whole adult life. I'm going to still be here. And I'll go back to what I started as a community activist, helping my community.
Wonderful, wonderful. I gotta respond myself, by the way. It's always, I'm not the only one winner. I'm gonna say that one. What if the sky falls if I lose? Okay. If I lose, service above self, that's the philosophy of the Rotary Club. And what I have been doing and for the community, serving food, serving PPE, whatever I do, even cleaning the parks, cleaning the neighborhoods, I will be continuing those things. And either as a volunteer or paid, however, but my community service will be on. Thank you.
Thank you. And look at that. We have 10 minutes left. So Steve, my editor-in-chief. This is where Steve usually asks a really in the weeds intensive question.
Well, I'll try not to ask in the weeds. I would like to, it's a bedroom community that your district, I take it, right? So I'm wondering, boy, I had a question. You kind of caught me. I had one of these raise your hand kind of questions.
Oh, we can do that.
Do you think Scott Stringer should drop out of the race because of the allegations? Raise your hand.
Are we doing that? Andrew?
Yep.
You do. Do you think that the police should be defunded or reimagined?
Nope.
No. No.
Yeah, let's say yes or no rather than raise your hand because there's so many people.
No.
Nope.
Absolutely not.
I see. Would you ever vote for someone from the other party, the opposite party? Would you only go along party lines?
Nope.
Nope.
What, you would never vote for somebody for the other party?
Are you people crazy? Yes, this is America. You can vote for anybody who you want, Democrat or Republican.
Yeah, you know.
Personally, I
Listen,
would not.
That's a disgraceful question.
I'm
Are
a
we
Democrat,
are we
you know,
in
but
America? Come on, guys. Yes, you
yeah,
all would.
yeah.
Somebody was crazy
Listen.
and a Democrat, you vote for Republican.
All right, John, let another person speak.
Sorry, no,
Yeah,
I would vote for the person, not the political party. Yes.
What
I
about-
agree with that. Yeah, you have to
Let
vote
me,
for the
let me
person.
be clear. We're talking about the primary. How come you can vote each other? Just tell me. Republican vote to the Republican and Democrat can vote to the Democratic nominee. So there's no way we can vote each other.
No, in a general election. when you
Okay,
can
okay, yeah,
vote
the general
across
election.
Party lines.
Yeah,
Would you
people
vote across party lines
people-
ever? Would you?
Yes,
Yes.
We're still raising our
Yes.
hands.
I
Do
might.
you think that the specialized high school entrance exam should be change the criteria to get into specialized high schools?
no,
Nope.
no.
Nope.
Put a thumbs down if we want to know.
Did-
No.
You know, this is one where I'd have to ask a question. How would you see to get more Black and Hispanic involvement in these schools? Do you think like gifted and talented should be expanded and minority?
Yeah, what you
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
what you have to do
That's easy.
is put more money into the
Mhm.
system so that every student has the accomplishments or the knowledge
Mhm.
to pass that test. You know, I actually got money when I was in the state Senate to give to the city to do exactly that, so that every student would be prepared to take that test. That's how you improve the
Yeah,
system.
I mean, like 30 years ago, there used to be a
We pay
gifted
the
and
most
talented
money
program.
per student
Wait, I
per
want to hear
term
Mr. Lee on
of
that.
any place in the city. So the answer isn't to throw more money at it. That's not how you raise the bar. And I can say that as the only person up here, I think, who's actually been a teacher professionally. Okay, you throwing money at the problem is not going to change the problem. We spend the most on procurement. We spend the most, $26,000 per student per term. Meanwhile, charter schools, which I'm not advocating for or against, they just have a different system. They do it for cheaper. They educate 13% of the city's students, and they beat the Success Academy Charter Schools Network, beat every single public school district in state tests. So you could throw money at the problem all you want.
But it won't actually cost any money. You know what? You could expand.
Solve the issue of
No, you could
what is causing the crisis in education. And I'm
you
saying
could
that's-
expand gifted and talented into every single school and it wouldn't cost the city any dollars because you're just turning one class into gifted and talented. The problem is that 30 years ago, 30 years ago, gifted and talented was removed from a large group of school community. And what happened with that is that there was no longer an academic advancement pipeline. And now, 15, 20 years later, we're seeing huge swaths of communities of color who are unable to compete for this test because we've gotten rid of this pipeline. If we're able to expand gifted and talented into every single school and have that pipeline going into middle school, then 15 years from now, we're going to be able to naturally have a group of students who are going to be able to compete for this test. The test is not it's not really the problem. That's like a red herring.
But Richard, you can't do that without having the money.
It's not
You
just.
have to allocate the money to do
We
that.
have the money. We have.
It actually costs nothing. It costs $0 to
What do
expand
you
gifted
mean?
and talented into
Of
every
course
single
it's gonna
school.
cost money.
No, it doesn't, because you're converting one class into it. And we actually reached out. I actually reached out to the independent budget office for this very specifically when I was budget director about a year ago about expanding gifted and talented into every school. It actually costs $0 to convert one class into gifted and talented.
There is
Let me
no
ask
reason why-
Adriana.
listen, there's no reason why, especially being on the CEC, and I know the stats and the figures, there's no reason why across the city, there are children are getting a 59 on state tests citywide, and District 26, right here in our own District 19, is getting over 90% in state testing. To me, that's a failure, and that has nothing to do with pipeline. It has nothing to do with money. There's something going on. It's the root of the education of why these children are not getting fairly educated to pass these tests at the rates that we have in District 19. Listen, we're not rich. Our family's not rich. I'm not sending them to tutoring. There's no reason why these families in District 19, District 26 is getting over a 90% in state tests when we are failing our kids in other parts of the city with 55%, 59%. How is that even possible? It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the education and the root of the problem. That's
What do you think, Austin? You got some young kids?
Man, it sounded like a lot of them arguing there for a few minutes. No, listen, I agree with what was said. I think that we should have gifted and talented programs. I think a lot of the conversations, frankly, like it's a bit of a red herring. It's what you do when you really don't know how to hit a systemic problem. Like, there's no excuse, there's no reason why we don't have a program in every single school and why every kid isn't prepared to be college and career ready. Like Richard said, we've had these before, we can get that back. And it's not necessarily a matter of money, it's a matter of resource allocation and making sure that whatever, class sizes that we have, whatever classroom structures that we have, that there's an opportunity for this program to be located in every single school. And then you're going to get a better and a more equitable, equitable education system. So I think it's something that we can do and that we should do.
Listen, I have 2 children, 6 and 3. So I always think about that. It's very important. What's the most important thing we need is the right leadership and the really fighter who can fight for this. It's very, very important to have this, believe me. Thank you.
Great. We have 3 minutes left. What, Steve?
Let's see, we got it in education, huh? We got you. Is there do you have any tenements? Are they all pretty much single family homes in your district?
You have co-ops and condos too.
You have co-ops and condos. Do you think the Mitchell-Lama program should be enhanced for middle income housing? A lot of people say affordable housing, but they don't talk about like teachers and cops and middle income. Do you have any ideas on how there could be more affordable middle income?
I would say, if you don't mind, I can jump in first. And this was mentioned a couple of times here. Affordability in different areas means different things. In parts of the city, it's about vertical integration. It's about building up more multiple family dwellings. In this area of Queens, where roughly 65% are single family homes and 1 and 2 family homes, it's about making home ownership more affordable. We need to have property tax reform for co-op and condo owners too. That's affordability. I've been a renter in a condo community. That's my gateway into home ownership. We need to have that kind of rental relief. And, also stopping the elimination of single family zoning is a major, major problem here, because if you thought the affordability issue was bad before, it's going to get a lot worse if we see, multiple family dwellings start rising up, to the left and the right. So that's how you make affordable housing in this kind of a community.
And I would agree with Austin, co-ops are affordable housing. They're not considered that by the city, but they are. And the tax structure for co-ops has to be changed. Right now, they're lumped together with commercial residential properties. That's why their property tax is too high. That has to change. If you change that, they become real affordable housing. You need to do that. Mitchell-Linden needs to be expanded, and we need to protect the 1-family home districts throughout the entire city. This move by certain elected officials, and even by Corey Johnson, the Speaker of the City Council, to say to get rid of them for affordable housing is absurd. What's wrong with having areas of the city that are suburban life in an urban environment? There's nothing. That's where the middle class is. That's where the middle class, which is the backbone of the tax base of the city. And we need to stay. And you need to have that, family home owner, family home dream that even new immigrants want to have. And we need to continue that. And that's going to be a major battle for many of the one-family districts by those people who represent them. We have to make sure that these neighborhoods stay safe and stay the way they are, because they are the tax base of the city of New York.
And
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree.
We have the highest number of seniors in our district. And there's no reason why, and you know they have a budget. Every month our seniors have a budget, and there's no reason why their taxes are going up and they can't afford this. And they live alone or they live with their spouses. And the highest rate of seniors in district that we have in our city, there's no reason why we can't fight for them so they don't have to worry about where they're gonna live their home, they're gonna lose their homes if they have to move out.
Yeah, and that's why I think we have to reimagine a lot of ways senior housing too. How do we make it work for our neighborhood, where it is all about single family homes, more low density neighborhoods, in a time where most senior affordable housing is being developed vertically in higher density neighborhoods. And how do we make it work for our neighborhood? And we can really expand and look upon, converting and turning and creating low density, like single family, one or two family homeowner style, one or two family home style affordable housing for seniors who are now trying to downsize, who are unable to afford their large homes because taxes have gone up and they're on fixed income, but they still want to age gracefully in their neighborhood. And I'd like to just once again agree with what Austin and Tony Avella said, in that home ownership really is the key to middle income household in our neighborhood. And I was my first ownership was a co-op, and that led me to be able to eventually own my first home. And I think we really should expand those type of opportunities of affordable home ownership programs or home ownership assistance programs, so we can get more people into home ownership in neighborhoods like ours.
I might be the only one to say that I don't think it's the city's job to try to interfere with creating a middle tier affordable housing. Affordable housing, as it's defined in New York, is anything under $900 a month. And we are grossly underprepared for what that is. We don't have that in New York City. And nobody here is addressing the problem of our taxes will continue to go up as our population decreases, because New York City gets, I think, roughly around 64% of our budget from taxpayers. And we just lost a congressional seat because our taxpayers are fleeing to tax haven states like Tennessee, like Florida. So the question really becomes, the answer to the problem of affordable housing is creating an environment where we have jobs and we have a market that's accessible to all New Yorkers. Otherwise, what we're going to do is price everybody out. And that's what's happening. People are being taxed out of the neighborhoods they grew up in and loved because it's simply unsustainable to afford it. Yes, sorry. I hope I got in under the wire there.
Listen, thank you. Thank you for being part of this conversation. District 19 is one of the only city council districts that has a Republican primary. So it's cool to hear different people's voices and on the different sides of the spectrum. So thank you everyone for being part of it. We just have to wrap. It's been an hour. We didn't really get dive into any of the issues, but that's what happens here on Zoom when there's so many different people with so many different opinions. So thank you everyone on behalf of Schneps Media and PoliticsNY. Visit our website, politicsny.com/debates. That's where you can see this recording and other recordings. And a lot of these candidates have been on our 3 questions in 3 minutes. And if you haven't, John and Tony, let's schedule that time to do that so people can learn even more about you and follow us on social media. And our job, me and Steve and PoliticsNY and Schneps, is to amplify your voice. So if you have an opinion, give it to us and we're going to put it out there because we have a lot of media connections within the organization. Okay.
And thank you all. I think the middle class is really important to the city. It really is. The backbone, you're the tax base and the backbone. And, you have my respect for all running and going into public service.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Good night.
Good night. Good
See you
seeing
next
everybody.
time.
Thank you.